but hopefully get a chance to have you introduce yourself to me. And part of what I wanted to come out to do today, part of what Patrick asked me to, was talk about optimal living in Sarasota. And I think there's a good logical connection between the Chamber of Commerce and optimal living. The tagline for the Chamber is good life, good business, the sense being a good quality of life creates a good business climate, and a good business climate creates good quality of life, so the two are very symbiotic. So it's really important for us to look at the quality of life here in Sarasota, because what we know is that economic activity will often follow quality living, because that's what people want to be. So the two are very intertwined. So I'll talk a little bit about the history of the Chamber of Commerce in Sarasota and what we've contributed to the community in terms of quality of life, and then I'll go into some of the programs that we have in existence today that continually focus on what's happening in Sarasota and the quality of life of both the residents and the businesses. A little bit about the history of the Chamber of Commerce, probably one of my favorite quotes, what Sarasota needs more than anything is a progressive board of trade or a Chamber of Commerce. This was said by C.V.S. Wilson in 1901. Mr. Wilson was the publisher of the Sarasota Times, Sarasota's first newspaper. It didn't take long for people to heed Mr. Wilson's recommendation. In 1911, Sarasota established its first Board of Trade. About 9 years later, in 1920, the Board of Trade reformed as the Sarasota Chamber of Commerce. Surprisingly, it reformed as the Sarasota County Chamber of Commerce, but that's a whole different history to go on. So I'll walk through the decades leading up to now and what they meant, really the headline piece from the Chamber of Commerce. And what many people may not in this room realize, that you're sitting in what used to be the southern portion of Manatee County. In fact, when the Chamber of Commerce formed in 1920, it was still Manatee County. And business leadership throughout the teens into 1920 were very critical and very integral in Sarasota County itself forming. Believe it or not, as we look at all the headlines about growth and development in this community, back then, what the residents were saying, what businesses were saying, is we are not growing fast enough, we are not developing enough, we do not have enough tourism, and there are not enough tax dollars coming from the northern county seat back down into Sarasota for infrastructure and education. We need to separate, we need to become our own county. And in 1921, the state of Florida recognized Sarasota as an independent county. It was no longer part of Manatee County. And now we have been in existence for nearly 100 years, and I would challenge anybody to find any type of documentation of the forming of Sarasota County that does not include business leadership at the helm. And there was a really great partnership between the community and the Chamber at the time. Many of our early chairs of the board were also former mayors of Sarasota. There was a great partnership in how to form the town of Sarasota, and the city of Sarasota formed long before the county did. Into the 1930s, the Chamber of Commerce, alongside, again, its partners, the chairman at the time, Mr. Smith, was also a former mayor of Sarasota, going up to Washington, D.C. to capitalize on what was then a lot of dollars being put forward in federal programming during the Great Depression. We were hit particularly hard during the Great Depression, and it was really critical for business and government to come together to travel up to Washington, D.C. to make sure that we were getting dollars from the federal programs that allowed for things like water lines, and recreational facilities during a time when investment simply was not occurring locally, and we were really dependent on the federal government to keep things moving along. Into the 1940s, this is architecture, I think, Greg. Some of you may recognize this as the Lido Beach Casino. Lido Beach Casino is an icon in Sarasota County, a former icon at the very least. And the Lido Beach Casino was born out of the Chamber of Commerce. We love committees at the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce had a committee for creating summer business. It came together in the late 1930s and into 1940, said what we need is a public bathing pavilion on Lido Beach. And from that concept ended up creating the Lido Beach Casino. The seahorses that existed on the Lido Beach Casino are still iconic and can be seen in this area today. And the story of Sarasota would be incomplete without the Lido Beach Casino. Similarly, into the 1950s, the College Committee at the Chamber of Commerce lobbied the state and said, hey, we are a college town without a college. And was integral in the creation of New College, which grabs many headlines today as, for many reasons, one of the top universities in the country. Into the 1960s, the Chamber presented a proposal to the city of Sarasota and said, what you need to do at the base of Main Street on Sarasota Bay is create a park. Many of you probably go there today. It is Bayfront Park. It was born out of conceptualizing in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. In the 1970s, a similar activity, we went to the airport authority and we said, hey, what you need to do is create a commerce park at the airport. And all of you probably know today, the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport is one of the few of its sizes in the country that is debt-free. And it is able to do that because it has ancillary revenue sources that allow it to not tap into taxpayer subsidies to perform. Much of that came from the existence of the Commerce Park at the airport. That was the Chamber's Community Economic Development Committee at the time. Into the 1980s and the early 1990s, there was, as we will ebb and flow in Sarasota, a lot of focus on the growth and development in Sarasota County. Business leaders, I think, were largely concerned. There was a proposal on the table to end the issuing of permits in Sarasota County to not allow any development to occur. So if you live in anything or enjoy anything built around 1990, there's a very good chance it never would have existed. Mary will tell you development is a stars aligning moment. It is not easy to do, and so putting a halt on things isn't always the best opportunity. And we were, along with many partners, at the forefront of pushing that forward. Into the 1990s and early 2000s, we kind of solidified our position here in terms, we built this building, which is near the corner of 301 and Fruitville. It is the building that we still live in today. Other buildings include the Blue Pagoda building here right down the road, which was our home in the 1950s. Not just that, in the more recent years, if you drove down US 301 about 10 years ago, it looked pretty different than it does today. We were key in securing the funding. Again, optimal living. It did not look, for anybody remember what it used to look like? Wasn't very attractive. Similarly, along the lines of what Mary was talking about, very integral in 2010 bringing the Baltimore Orioles here. One of our first chairmen, John Ringling, was critical to bringing spring training to Sarasota in the first place in the 1920s with the then New York Baseball Giants, who used to practice over at Payne Park. So what do we do today? And what are the areas in which we focus on optimal living, especially how do we address kind of the age continuum in Sarasota? And I will start with a partnership that we have with the Florida College Access Network. The Chamber is the backbone of an organization called Talent for Tomorrow. And Talent for Tomorrow is your local college access network. So when the National College Access Network looks across the state of Florida, in Sarasota you have Talent for Tomorrow. And what that is a community-based post-secondary access alliance. Sounds nebulous, but it's pretty simple. I'll talk about what that is in a minute. And it's comprised of really the four-legged stool: it's education, government, business, and philanthropy. So it is your K through 12 educators, it is your colleges and universities locally, it is the government, it is business, the Chamber being the backbone, but also philanthropy. So you have the United Way, the Education Foundation, UNIDOS Now, the Charles and Marjorie Barancik Foundation, the Community Foundation of Sarasota County, and the Gulf Coast Community Foundation, focusing on this effort. And basically, what is it? It's doing our best to create a college-going culture here locally. What we know in terms of optimal living is that educated citizens are happier citizens, they are healthier citizens, and they are more productive citizens. Education is no doubt the carrot after which we all seek for a better community. Educated communities are better communities without any question. We look to increase post-secondary readiness, participation, and completeness rates within the community. Gone are the days where post-secondary is simply college. Mary talked about it. It is a trade, it is a certificate, it is a professional degree. It does not matter, but you need to, when you finish high school, continue your education. So what does that look like here locally? So what we saw as an organization was the single biggest predicator of pursuing and achieving post-secondary education is when a student completes a FAFSA form. It is the federal student aid form that college or high school age students can fill out to be eligible for Pell Grants. It's free money. And what we found in Sarasota County was that there was over $2 million of Pell Grant left on the table every year. Wow. 5 years, that's $10 million of money not going into Sarasota County high school students' hands to go to college. So what we did was fairly simple, and we started FAFSA workshops in our local high schools. We went to them and we said, here's how you fill it out. We're going to bring Spanish-speaking volunteers in to make sure that we have a bilingual support for this. And in the first year, we increased Sarasota's capture of Pell Grant dollars by $280,000. College is expensive. Students are saddled with debt. If we can create access to these dollars, it's better for our students, regardless of whether they stay here or not. It gets them into that post-secondary track. The state also awards 15, there are 15 awards given away every year for FAFSA performance. We captured 8 out of 15. I mean, there's 67 counties in the state of Florida. That's not bad, you get 8 out of 15. You heard from Jamie Minton earlier today. The Sarasota Chamber of Commerce also is a partner with our Young Professionals group. So we've kind of talked about it. We start talking to them in high school. We want to get them into college, and then when they get out of college and they start their professional career, we want to be there supporting them and giving them an avenue through which to support what they do. And they are focused on personal development. And the reason that's important to all of us here is the more you develop our young people personally, the more anchors they have to the community, the more likely that they will not leave.
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody would admit that we do not have a challenge in retaining young people. Sometimes that's as simple as the opportunity of cost of leaving is very low. When you get them involved with nonprofits, when you connect them to other young professionals, when you connect them to opportunities, the likelihood of them leaving diminishes greatly. It also plugs them into professional development. They hold a professional development series in the summer. What do you do with resumes? How do you negotiate? How are you bettering yourself? And in turn, how are you bettering the community? But also a community development. They are very focused on charitable giving to nonprofits, some of which Mary talked to, but also scholarships for other children to pursue education, and that helps us all. We are also home to a program called Leadership Sarasota County. I don't know if anybody's gone through the leadership program in Sarasota County. It's similar to other communities' leadership programs. It has a number of components. First is the adult leadership program, where professionals now, probably a little bit more past the young professional stage, they're a little bit more established, and they want to learn the inner workings of the community and how they can lend their professional and leadership experience to the areas that need focus in this community. The adult leadership class has about 40 professionals that go through it every year. It is a 10-week program. It's one Friday a month, and they go around the community learning about the areas of health and human services, education, government. And I know Tom Barwin participates in that, talking about city government. So they learn about everything that makes the community work. There is also an Engage Sarasota series where you can come to one lunch a month if a full day a month is a little too much of a commitment for you. You learn about the same topics. So you'll hear from the heads of the hospitals on how we provide health care in the community. You'll hear from nonprofits and health and human service organizations and what they provide. There's also a youth leadership program, does the same thing for the youth, an alumni program, and a Young Entrepreneurs Academy, which goes into our schools and teaches them how to be entrepreneurs. In partnership with the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives and the Economic Development Corporation, we do something called Inter-City Best Practice Visits. So we take groups of professionals and individuals here locally, and we look around the region and go, hey, where are communities doing it really well? And we can take their best practices back to Sarasota and implement them. We've gone to communities like Charleston, Louisville, Nashville, Asheville, all the villes we've been to. And, you know, I don't know if that's completely happenstantial. But people go, well, what came of this? And I know we're right next door to something that came of it. Michael Clover will tell you that the inspiration for Bayfront 2020 came from an inner-city best practice visit where he looked at cobbling together assets. What can you do with them, particularly on the waterfront? Waterfront development has been a target of ours to go to communities learn how to develop their waterfront. Finally, as I wrap up, there are two standing councils that I think are focused on optimal living in this community, and the nice thing about it is we have a diverse age range and experience and professional background range. One is the City Priorities Council. Patrick Gannon sits on that as a representative from the DSCA. It is a well-rounded group of varied experienced professional individuals that look at what's going on in our backyard. And provide input and feedback and suggestions on where we need to go and what we need to do. For example, at the most recent meeting talking about the Fruitville Road proposals between US 41 and 301, how will the future of our transit look, how will pedestrian traffic work, how will bicycle traffic work, where are we heading into the future, and it's very committed to looking at those issues. I hope Patrick would say nice things about it, but maybe when I'm not in the room, we'll say something different. Finally, is our Government Issues Council. It's kind of very similar to the City Priorities Council, but it takes a step back and looks all around us. It's more of a regionally focused, optimal, best practice organization. Again, diverse ages, diverse backgrounds, diverse expertise that weighs in on what's going on. All of them are volunteers, and they have all been very successful in mirroring the success of the communities I mentioned earlier that were instrumental in things like the Lido Beach Casino, New College, and Bayfront Park. Did I do good? Did I hit it?
Awesome.
All right. Hey!